I never thought I'd be writing something like this, but here I am. My name's Mike, and I've been with my wife, Lisa, for about 8 years now. We seemed like the perfect couple, at least that's what I always believed. She was beautiful, smart, ambitious. I thought we had it all, or at least I did. Things started to feel off about 2 months ago, but I brushed it aside. Lisa became more distant, secretive even. She started working late more often, claiming it was just her job. She'd be texting at weird hours, quick to hide her phone, and would get defensive if I ever asked who she was talking to. Still, I tried to trust her. I really did. Maybe I was just paranoid. Maybe I was overthinking it. Then the small signs turned into bigger red flags. She'd come home from work with lipstick on her collar, which she would deny vehemently. She'd hide her phone, even when I was in the same room. I caught her deleting messages once, and it felt like my stomach sank into my shoes. Still, I told myself maybe she was just trying to protect me or keep something from me. Out of guilt. But everything changed about a week ago. I was at home, about to head to bed, when I decided to check her phone. I know, terrible move, but I was just so suspicious. I unlocked it because honestly I was hoping to find something concrete, even if it was just reassurance. Instead, I found a string of messages from her boss, Daniel. They weren't just professional. No, they were intimate, flirty, full of inside jokes and misses and "can't wait to see you again." It hit me like a ton of bricks. That was the moment I realized she'd been cheating on me, not just with some random guy, but with this guy she works with, Daniel. The messages went on for weeks, probably longer. My mind was racing. How could she do this? How could she lie so blatantly? I felt this mixture of shock, rage, and heartbreak all at once. I looked at her phone history, and there were dozens of texts, some explicit. I saw photos, some of her, some of them together, laughing, kissing, clearly more than just colleagues. I couldn't breathe. My first instinct was to confront her right then, but I knew I needed to get my head straight. I needed to plan how I was going to handle this. She came home that night acting normal, too normal, smiling, acting like everything was fine. I was sitting on the couch, cold sweat on my forehead, waiting. When she finally came in, I just looked at her and said, "Lisa, I know what you've been doing. I saw the messages. You cheated on me, didn't you?" Her face froze for a second, then she threw her head back and laughed. "That bitch." Her reply, "Oh, come on, Mike. You're overreacting. It's just sex. It doesn't mean anything. You're being paranoid." That was her excuse. Just sex, no big deal. Like I should just brush it off. I looked at her in disbelief. I could see the flicker of guilt behind her eyes, but she was trying to act like she didn't care. That's when I realized how much I'd been blind to her manipulations, and how much she was willing to lie to my face. I knew this was only the beginning of something much worse. My world was shattering, and I could feel the anger boiling inside me, but I also felt this deep, sinking sadness. I loved her. I wanted to believe she was just stressed or maybe just messing around. But now I knew the truth, and the truth was brutal. She'd been screwing her boss, probably during her business trips, and she didn't even bother to hide that she was pregnant with his child. She told me that last week, like it was some kind of joke. It was like my whole life had turned into a nightmare overnight. I didn't know what to do. All I knew was that I had to decide whether I was going to fight for this marriage or walk away from the woman who I thought was my soulmate. The days that followed that confrontation felt like a blur. Honestly, I couldn't sleep, couldn't eat. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw her face, heard her laugh, saw those messages, those photos. I kept asking myself how I missed all the signs, how I was so blind to what was happening right under my nose. It was like waking up from a nightmare I never knew I was living. The betrayal hit me harder than I expected, more than just the cheating. It was the way she lied so effortlessly, like she genuinely thought I wouldn't find out or wouldn't care. But I cared, more than I ever thought I could. I started to think about the whole timeline. How long had she been cheating? Was this just a fling, or was this something more serious? Did she ever love me? That last question tore me apart. I replayed every moment, every word, every touch we shared, and it all felt so pointless now. The trust was gone, shattered like glass. What hurt even more was the way she acted after I found out. She acted like she didn't care, like I was overreacting, like she was entitled to do what she wanted. That bitch. She kept insisting it was just sex, like that somehow made it okay. That I should just forgive her because, after all, she was pregnant, and her pregnancy was the reason for everything. She kept saying she needed me to be understanding, but I couldn't understand how she could be so cold, so calculated about it all. The worst part was how she spun it. She told me that her boss, Daniel, was just a fling, just sex, that she never meant for it to go this far, and that she only told me about the pregnancy because she was scared I'd leave her. She kept lying, making it sound like I was the one at fault, that I was insecure or paranoid. I wanted to scream at her, to shake her and tell her she was full of shit. But I stayed quiet, mostly because I didn't trust myself to not lose it. Instead, I started quietly planning. I knew I had to do something, but I wasn't sure what yet. Was I going to fight for her, or was it over? My mind was a battlefield. I started digging into her phone again, looking for more clues, more proof. I found out that she'd been planning to go on a business trip to New York last month, right when she told me she was visiting her sister for a weekend. That trip was the first time she was with Daniel alone. The messages from that trip, even more disturbing. They were filled with talk about how much they missed each other, how they couldn't wait to be alone again. She told him she was pregnant, said it was theirs. I saw every message, every lie she told herself to justify what she was doing. It was like she was constructing a false reality to cover her guilt. One thing I couldn't get over was the way she brushed off my feelings. I told her how much she hurt me, how betrayed I felt, and she just snapped back with, "You're overreacting, Mike. You're insecure. Honestly, I don't know why you're making such a big deal out of this. It's just sex." That word just made me want to vomit. As if sex with Daniel was nothing, as if her pregnancy was nothing. She acted like I was supposed to accept her lies and move on. I couldn't. I decided then that I needed to get out of that house, clear my head. I went for a long walk, trying to make sense of everything. I thought about all the times she'd made me feel like I was crazy for suspecting her. How she'd gaslight me, tell me I was imagining things, that I was insecure. But the evidence was there. I couldn't deny it anymore. She'd been lying to my face for months. That realization was like a punch to the gut. I felt more alone than ever. I knew I had to confront her again, but maybe this time I'd be prepared. I needed to decide what I was going to do about this whole mess, whether I was going to fight for us or cut her out completely. Honestly, I was leaning towards the latter. I'd never felt so betrayed, so stupid for trusting her. The next couple of days were a whirlwind. I knew I couldn't just sit around and do nothing. I was furious, hurt, and absolutely determined to get to the bottom of this mess. I started talking to a few friends, trying to get some advice, though honestly I wasn't even sure what I wanted anymore. One thing was clear: Lisa wasn't the woman I thought she was. She kept lying, kept denying everything, calling me paranoid and insecure whenever I pressed her. She even had the nerve to say that I was overreacting because I was jealous of her success, as if her cheating and pregnancy had nothing to do with her own choices. I decided I needed to see her with my own eyes. I made a plan to follow her on her next business trip, just to see what she was really up to. I needed proof, something concrete. I didn't want to believe the worst, but I had no choice. I waited for her to leave for a meeting, and I followed her car to the airport. Waiting in my car, I watched her go inside, her bag slung over her shoulder, looking so confident. I had no idea what I was going to find, but I knew I needed to see her with my own eyes. A few hours later, I saw her emerge from the terminal, not alone. She was with Daniel. They looked cozy, laughing, holding hands. My stomach turned inside out. They hadn't even tried to hide it anymore. Seeing them together that way, so casual, so intimate, made the anger boil over. I stayed hidden, watching as they got into a taxi. I felt this overwhelming rush of betrayal, like I'd been punched in the chest. How could she do this? How could she lie to my face all this time? I had no doubt now. She'd been screwing him during her trips, probably even before she told me she was pregnant. That bastard Daniel, thinking he was so clever, so smooth. I didn't confront her at the airport. I just watched, took mental notes, and then backed away. I felt numb. When I got home, I didn't bother to hide my anger. I called her, told her I knew everything, asked her what she had to say for herself. She was so dismissive, so full of herself. She told me that I didn't understand her, that she was stressed, that she needed someone who actually cared about her. She called me insecure again, said I was just jealous because I wasn't satisfying her. That was her go-to excuse, that I was the problem. That night I couldn't sleep. I kept replaying everything I saw, everything she said, everything she did. The thought of her and Daniel, her lying next to me, pretending everything was fine, made me sick. I felt this intense need for revenge, but I didn't know what form it should take. Part of me just wanted to rip her apart with words, tear her down like she'd done to me. But another part, the darker part, wanted something more calculated, more satisfying. I didn't want just an angry breakup or to throw her out. I wanted her to feel the same pain she'd inflicted, to realize what she'd lost. I started thinking about the future. I couldn't stay with her anymore, not after this. I had to get out, find a way to start over. But I also knew I had to do something about Daniel, make him feel the same betrayal I was drowning in. I wasn't going to let this go quietly. I decided I'd gather all my evidence, screenshots of those messages, photos of her with Daniel, everything. I wanted to make damn sure she knew I knew. I wanted her to understand how deeply she'd hurt me. I also knew I had to be smart about it. Confronting her drunk or angry wouldn't do. I needed a plan. So I sat there in the dark that night, feeling a mix of rage and heartbreak, wondering how I'd been so blind. I thought about all the plans we'd made, all the promises she'd broken. I wondered how I'd let it get this far, how I'd trusted her so blindly. It was a sinking feeling, knowing she'd been lying, cheating, and planning this all along. But I also knew one thing: I wasn't going to let her get away with it, not without a fight. I just had to figure out what kind of fight that would be. The next morning I woke up feeling like I'd been hit by a truck. Every part of me hurt, my chest, my head, my heart. I kept thinking about what I saw, what I knew, what I was going to do. I decided I couldn't drag this out anymore. I had to confront her, but I had to be smart. I didn't want to do something I'd regret. I also knew that I needed to protect myself legally and emotionally. I spent the day gathering everything I could find, screenshots of the messages, saved photos, any evidence that proved she'd been lying all along. I wanted her to see I was serious. I also started contacting a lawyer, just to understand my rights, what I could do if I decided to end things for good. I wasn't planning on just walking away without making her pay in some way. She'd gone too far, lied too much. She needed to know I wasn't going to be a pushover anymore. That night, I decided to call her again. I told her I wanted to meet, just us, so I could talk. She agreed, of course, acting like everything was fine. When she arrived, I was already sitting in the living room, my phone in my hand, evidence ready to go. She looked nervous, but she tried to play it cool. I didn't let her. I laid everything out, showed her the screenshots, played the voice messages I'd saved, even the photos from the airport. Her face went pale. She tried to deny it all, saying those messages were taken out of context, that she didn't mean any of it, that I was just jealous and insecure. But I wasn't buying it anymore. I told her that I knew she'd been lying to me for months, that her affair with Daniel wasn't just a fling but something serious. I told her about the trip, about seeing her with him. Her facade cracked a little, and she started crying, big, fake sobs that I didn't believe for a second. Then she looked at me and said, "It's not what you think, Mike. You're making a big deal out of nothing. I was just stressed. Daniel's just a friend. It's not like I love him or anything." That was her go-to line, asterisk just asterisk a friend, asterisk just asterisk sex, nothing more. Yeah, right. I felt a rush of anger and sadness all at once. I told her I was done believing her lies, that I couldn't stay married to someone who had been so dishonest. I said I was going to leave, that I wanted a divorce. Her reaction, she got even bitchier. She yelled, called me a jealous idiot, told me I was overreacting because I couldn't satisfy her, that I was just insecure because she was pregnant and she needed someone who cared about her. That was her way of twisting everything, making it about me, not her. She kept insisting that the baby was mine, even though I had my doubts. I told her I didn't want to be part of a lie anymore. That night, I packed a bag and left. I didn't even tell her where I was going at first. I needed space, time to breathe, to think. I stayed with a friend I trust for a few days while I sorted out what to do next. The heartbreak was overwhelming, but I knew I couldn't stay with her. Not anymore. She crossed a line I couldn't come back from. That betrayal ran too deep, and I realized I was better off without someone who lied to my face, cheated on me, and then threw a pregnancy in my face like some kind of weapon. The hardest part wasn't even the cheating. It was accepting that the woman I loved, the woman I'd built a life with, was capable of this kind of deception. I kept asking myself, how did I miss all the signs? How did I let her get away with this for so long? But the truth was, I was naive. I wanted to believe in her, in us. Now I know better. Now I see her for what she really is, a liar, a cheater, and someone who clearly didn't care about me at all. I don't know what's coming next. Honestly, I don't think I can trust her anymore or anyone like her. All I know is that I have to start rebuilding from the ground up. And I will. Because I deserve better than this betrayal. The days after I left her house were some of the hardest I've ever experienced. I felt like a shell of myself, hurt, angry, betrayed. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw her with Daniel, her lying about the pregnancy, her cold, bitchy attitude when I confronted her. It was like I'd been hit by a freight train. But even with all that pain, I knew I had made the right decision. Staying with her would have been like signing my own prison sentence, accepting her lies and her betrayal. I couldn't do that, not anymore. I started reaching out to a few close friends just to talk, to vent. Their reactions were a mix of shock and anger. They kept telling me I deserved better, that I should cut her out completely, and they were right. But it wasn't that simple. I still loved her, or at least I thought I did. I kept wondering if there was any way to salvage what little was left of our marriage, but deep down I knew it was over. The trust was shattered beyond repair. I'd been played, used, and discarded like some disposable toy. In the meantime, I hired a lawyer. I wanted to understand my rights, what I could do legally, especially with the pregnancy and the evidence I'd collected. I wasn't planning to just walk away empty-handed. I wanted her to pay for what she'd done. I also started thinking about the future. Would I fight for custody? Would I try to get some kind of financial settlement? My mind was spinning with possibilities, but for now, I just needed to focus on myself. One thing I realized during this period was how much I'd underestimated her. Lisa had always been a bitchy, manipulative girl, but I never imagined she'd cheat on me, lie so blatantly, and then throw a pregnancy in my face like it was some kind of victory. That's what hurt the most, feeling like I'd been played for a fool all along. She kept trying to justify everything, saying she was stressed, that she didn't mean for it to happen, that Daniel was just a fling. I could see through all her bullshit now. She wanted to act like nothing was wrong, like she was the victim. Meanwhile, she was the one betraying me, lying to my face for months. I started getting my affairs in order, talking to a therapist, trying to process all these conflicting feelings. I was angry, yes, but I was also sad. It felt like my entire life had been a lie. I kept thinking about the good times, the promises we made, and how easily she threw all that away. I felt stupid for trusting her so much. I kept asking myself, how did I not see this coming? How did I miss all the signs? But I guess love blinds you sometimes. You want to believe in the person you love, even when everything seems wrong. Now I see her for what she is, a selfish, manipulative woman who thought she could get away with everything. I also made a decision. I wasn't going to fight for her anymore. Not because I didn't love her, but because I deserved someone who wouldn't lie, cheat, and betray me. I deserve honesty, loyalty, and respect. And if she couldn't give me that, then I had to walk away. It's not easy, especially when you've invested years into someone. But I realized that staying would only hurt me more. So I started planning my next steps, thinking about how to rebuild my life from the wreckage she left behind. I knew it wouldn't be easy, but I was determined. I had to do it for myself, for my sanity, for my future. And one day, I hope I'll look back on this nightmare and realize I came out stronger on the other side. In the weeks that followed, I threw myself into rebuilding my life. The first thing I did was cut ties with Lisa completely. No more texts, no more calls, no more pretending everything was okay. I blocked her number and social media, and I made sure to surround myself with friends and family who actually cared. It wasn't just about cutting her out. It was about reclaiming my own identity, my sense of self-worth. Every day was a struggle, but slowly, I started feeling like myself again. I refused to let her betrayal define me. I also focused on my mental health. Seeing a therapist helped me unpack the anger and sadness, and I learned how to let go of the guilt I'd been carrying around. I realized that her actions weren't my fault, and I didn't deserve to carry that pain forever. That was a huge step, accepting that I was a victim in this, but I didn't have to be a victim forever. I owed it to myself to heal and move on. Legally, things got complicated. My lawyer advised me to be patient, gather more evidence, and prepare for the possibility of a custody battle. I didn't want to hurt her, but I needed to protect my rights and the future of that child. I'd be damned if I let her manipulate the system or use the baby as a weapon. I made it clear to her that I wanted nothing to do with Daniel or the lies she'd told herself. She tried to reach out a few times, crying and begging for forgiveness, saying she'd change, that she loved me. But I wasn't buying it anymore. I saw through her lies, her manipulations, and her false tears. One thing I've learned from all this is that trust is fragile. Once broken, it's almost impossible to repair. I also learned that some people are just selfish and willing to betray everything for their own benefit. I don't regret leaving her. If anything, I feel relieved, like a weight has been lifted. I finally see things clearly now. I see her for what she truly is, a dishonest, manipulative woman who thought she could get away with anything. Now I'm focused on myself. I'm rebuilding my career, reconnecting with friends, and focusing on my future. I still think about her sometimes, about what could have been, about the lies and the pain. But mostly I think about how I survived all of this, how I'm stronger for it. No matter how much she betrayed me, I refuse to let her define my story. I'm moving forward one step at a time, wiser and more cautious than before. Because at the end of the day, I know I deserve honesty, loyalty, and someone who truly cares. And I'll find that again, just not with her.